everyone, and bienvenue to our Getting Started with EP Languages webinar. One of my favorite memories when I was a teacher was teaching a particular word that my year 6 students always asked for me to repeat. And this word is a French word for squirrel, écureuil. And that word made it like the class stick with French because they loved saying this word and always asked to repeat that word. And this is what EP would do with empowering students to practice their language skills. My name is Angelina. I was a language French teacher for about 10 years, and I taught in Australia across multiple curricula, the New South Wales, Australian curriculum, and also the IB. And with me today, I have Philippa.
Hi everyone, I'm Philippa. Kia ora and bonjour. I taught high school French in New Zealand for over 10 years and I've been at EP now for quite a while, and I look after our languages product and everything relating to that. And it's wonderful to be here with you today, Angelina, and talking to all our wonderful teachers about some cool features in our platform. When I was a French teacher, my main goal was to make language learning fun and more accessible to students. And that's what I love about our work here at EP as well. And of course, supporting teachers wherever we can. So thank you for joining us. And we're looking forward to talking with you today.
Thank you, Philippa. And from one language teacher to another, we know what it looks like to teach languages. And we're here to make you feel empowered with using our platform. And we would like to show you the EP differentiated learning cycle. And basically, before we jump into the platform, we want to give you a quick sense of how we have structured the webinar session today. And everything will revolve around three main key areas: assessments, instruction, and practice.
And this differentiated learning cycle that Angelina's talking about, it's very much the natural rhythm of teaching. And you don't have to follow it in any set order. You can think about it as buckets, if you like, that you can draw from depending on what you need and when you need it. So we have obviously we have planning, teaching or instruction, checking understanding, supporting, practicing and adjusting. And that's sort of like a natural cycle that we do all the time in teaching. And we've grouped that into those three buckets that Angelina mentioned. So assessment, instruction and practice. And we're going to talk a bit more about each of those buckets today in this session and what you can find in EP to do each of those things.
To start with the first one, those buckets don't have to be in a particular order, but we'll start with the assessments, and this will encompass your readiness assessments to check students on understanding, your formative assessment, your summative assessment.
And then we're going to look at our instructional tools, so how you can plan your course, deliver content explicitly, and even adapt and target instruction based on what individual students or groups of students might need.
Finally, we'll look at the practice space, the part where students get to apply what they've learned and reinforce their skills, build their confidence through our favorite language skills and listening, reading, writing, vocabulary, and grammar as well.
And throughout the session, you'll see examples of how you can use this in a languages classroom. But how you apply it yourself is entirely up to you.
Start with assessments, and we'll show you what EP does when you want to assess students for their readiness. Then what does EP have for your formative assessments, those regular check-in points, and then your summative assessment to capture final understanding, final topic understanding.
Okay, I'm now going to jump into the platform and we'll have a look at some of these different assessment options. So you can see here from my homepage, I'm then going to go into the Discover area where we have all of our pre-built courses, and you can choose your curriculum option here, your language and your level. And you can see I'm in beginner French, and this is our new updated beginner course. So we'd love for you to take a look at this and have a look at how you might be able to use this for your students. And we'll talk about the course structure when we get into the instruction side of it. But you can see we've got individual topics. And then within the topics, we've got these different pre-built assessments. So we have a skill snapshot assessment, which has got vocabulary, listening, reading, and writing questions within each topic. And this is like a question bank, and you can assign these multiple times over and over again to the students within that learning cycle, either as a readiness assessment, a formative assessment, or a summative assessment. And they're all automatically marked, and they'll provide you with a great amount of data about your students' progress, which can really feed the instruction side of things and the practice. We also have authentic communication assessments, which are based on authentic speaking and writing tasks and based on an authentic prompt generally. And these can be used generally as a summative assessment at the end of a topic. And then we also have the functionality to set a quiz. So you can actually go into our course planning area. So find your class and go into the course, and we'll show you how to set this up shortly. But you can actually assign a formative quiz on any of the lessons in here. So you simply click, say you want to do a quick formative check on some listening. You can check the listening box and you can go assign a quiz, and it will take you through to our assessment manager where you choose your class, the dates, and you can basically make a question bank from that lesson and assign the students a quick quiz to test where they're at with a particular skill as well. So there's loads of options for assessment here. And what's brilliant about our assessment platform is all the data you can access. So you can get an overview of where the whole class is at. You can get a breakdown of where your individual students are at with each skill, so the overall score, but then a breakdown for each skill within a topic. You can get an analysis of each, where they're at within each skill, and actually assign personalized learning pathways based on that. And that's fantastic for that personalized learning for both the instruction side of the cycle and the practice side. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in our second webinar as well. So look out for that. And then you can also compare results. So you can click here and you can compare results between a readiness assessment you might have done at the start to another similar version of the assessment at any stage in that cycle. So there's so much data here and so much that you can do with this data. And like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about that in our second webinar. And I know from teachers I've spoke to that they've really seen a big increase in students' formative assessments at the end when they've persisted with those formative assessments, and the students are really striving to do their best. So it's really great to see that increase at the end. Shall we move on, Angelina, to talking about the instruction side and how to plan and teach using EP? And we've already sort of jumped into a little bit. I've shown you the course planner, but we could look at a bit more of that.
Absolutely, Philippa. Let's jump into the instruction and how we plan and teach using EP. So this is the second bucket that EP focuses on. When I was teaching, I always worked with the course plan, but then narrowed it down to the scope and sequence or course planner or teaching plan. Different teachers use different names. It was like my roadmap for the term and the year. EP has something similar, built right into the platform, and we call it the course planner. You can use it to adapt your existing plan. You can copy your existing plan to this course planner, align your curriculum, and structure your topic and lessons in the way that works for you. And Philippa will show you how you can organize all this within the one platform that is Education Perfect.
Absolutely. So shall we head into the platform and show you where to find this? So I'll share my screen again. And this might look familiar because we did jump in here a little bit for the assessment section. So this is our course planner. And can you see my screen okay, Angelina?
I can see it. Okay, thank you.
So you can see here, we've already got this set up as a course. We've got our Year 8 French class, and we've got Term 1, Term 2, Term 3, Term 4. And it's very simple. Like you can take your scope and sequence or your course plan, whatever it is that you use, and you simply just have to click on this link where it says Add Topic, and it will take you to the course in Discover, which I showed you before for the assessments. And you can just pick from here and add it to the term in your course planner. And then you can set up a term in advance, you can set up the year in advance, really up to you how you want to manage that. But it's a lovely tool for having everything organized. And then you can go into the topics and you'll see exactly the same thing that we were looking at before. It's just through a different angle. So when we talk about instruction, we have different types of lessons within each topic. And so the first one that I'd like to show you is our introduction lessons. And these are designed specifically for instruction. They introduce the key concepts, the key language knowledge that the students need to know for the topic. So they have introduction slides that introduce the vocabulary. Often we have these interactive thing links, which students can click on. They can hear the word, they can see what it means. Once we get into the different topics, we have more images and more different authentic images as well in these thing links. We've also got explanations, and every word has a sound file. There's also cultural information in these slides. And then they've got lots of quiz style questions to reinforce this. So these are perfect for instruction. You can use them either as a whole class instruction. You can project them on the board. We've got a projection tool which makes them into like a slideshow essentially. So you can have everyone going through it together. You can work on it in small groups with students. So if you've got students working on different things in the class, and so for that sort of individualized instruction or even one-on-one, students can work through these at their own pace as well. So they can work through the introduction lesson independently, but it's providing all the language knowledge essentially that they need for the topic. We also have strategies in all of our lessons. So for example, the listening lessons have strategies, which is great for in the instructional side of things too. And we have authentic video lessons too in some of our topics, which provide students also with that language modeling and instruction as well. So the video actually presents the language and is another form of giving students that instruction, as well as having the practice that goes alongside it. So there's lots of tools in the platform to support that.
Students, I remember it was a year 10 students and we were doing that video you just showed then, and they were practicing, we would repeat in the class, or as an instruction, I would put the video on the board, and before doing all the exercises, we would watch it, they identify the words they know, they write the sentences, they practice, and at home I would say, repeat what they say, and then they would complete the lesson at home after working as explicit instruction in the classroom.
That's awesome. That's so cool to hear. And yeah, these lessons can be used in so many different ways. They really can be, and using this course planning tool, it can really plan your whole course and be a full textbook replacement if you choose to use it like that. So it's great. Should we move on and look at practice, Angelina, where students can really apply their learning and build confidence in those skills?
So like Philippa said, now we're going to move to the third bucket to focus on, okay, what do we mean by practice at Education Perfect? And there's three different key elements of the practice. We taught languages. Philippa, you were telling me the same thing with one of your classes. You need repetition. That's how grammar sticks, words sticks. And that repetition needs that's when students practice their word, practice their grammar. You can do that.
Well, I mean, it's very flexible. So it can be used for homework, and lots of teachers do use it for homework, for in-class work, warm-ups, targeted revision. You can have, students, you might want to have learning rotations, so students moving around different activities. I used to love learning rotations. Choice boards, it could be a practice activity on a choice board. I was talking to a teacher the other day who was saying that they use it for small group or individual practice. So if the teacher wants to work with a group or an individual, they can have the rest of the class doing their practice on EP. So it's really so many different ways that it can be used. Should we jump in and have a look, Angelina, at some of the practice tools? So I'll share my screen again. So once again, you can see this from the course planner or from our Discover area. So within each of the topics, we've got practice lessons. So we have listening, reading, writing, and speaking, and they all provide scaffolded practice of each skill. So you can see they start with learning objectives. We've got strategies for each skill, and then lots and lots of practice. So it always starts off with more recognition style activities and then goes into sort of gradually increases in terms of the level of thinking required. So recognition within a context, and then moving through to understanding of the conversation or the monologue. And then finally, we include some analysis questions at the end for that sort of deeper thinking. And most of this is automatically marked. So the students are getting that instant feedback all the time. You can track their progress. But then also for the writing and speaking, for example, you can actually go in and give them feedback on their writing and speaking, which is really awesome and powerful. It can also be, the writing can be used in conjunction with our AI feedback tool, so they can get really personalized feedback from our AI feedback tool. And all of the lessons are there for that independent practice, or once again, it can be whole class practice. Students can repeat over and over again if they want to, and it can really be driven by the formative assessment side too. So if you can see from the assessment data that they need more practice with a particular skill, then you can focus in their practice on that particular skill. So we've also got vocabulary practice. You can see our vocabulary list here. And within each topic, within each course as well, we've got grammar. So if I scroll down here, we've got the grammar lessons available for each of the levels too. So you can assign your grammar lessons through EP as well. So loads of practice tools that you can access and use in many different ways.
So many teachers were asking me, how do I improve independent practice? Students can access this on their own as well. You can assign it for them to do it later. Some teachers were asking, okay, we use EP for revision. How can I encourage that? You can assign those reinforcing skills lesson like Philippa was showing, and that will fit into your revision schedule. And guided practice, like Philippa was saying, you can have a group of students working on a specific skill. What you sit one-on-one working with another student, you know that everyone is guided into their vision. So that's all of this is very flexible and possible with Education Perfect as well.
Absolutely. And so if you're wondering how all this comes together with our learning cycle and all of our practice and instruction and assessment, basically, if you're thinking of, how can I use this? You can start with the course planner. So you can get your course set up. You can drag in those topics. You could start with a quick skill snapshot, see where your students are at in the topic, assign some practice and some instruction, and then you can just keep repeating that cycle. So really, you can, as we said at the start, you might just choose one to start with, but if you want to use that whole cycle, that would be sort of how you bring it all together. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of an idea as to how you can use our EP Languages tools. We hope you found that helpful. Listen into our second webinar where we're going to talk more about the data analysis available for the assessments and how this can be really used productively in your teaching and to really help that cycle come together.
Thank you so much, Philippa. That was wonderful. I hope you feel comfortable in using the platform, and you can contact us at any time. Our support team is always there to assist you, and let us know, share with us, how did that work for you? What was your experience with the platform? And we would love to hear any student stories about using Education Perfect to become fluent speakers.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Angelina, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.